In the brutal skies of Desert Storm, two American Eagles faced a cunning ambush. It wasn't just a dogfight, it was a chess match at supersonic speeds, where strategy, courage, and a bit of luck determined who lived and who fell. This is the untold story of when MiG-29s ambushed Eagles. When MiG-29s ambushed Eagles, a supersonic chess match over Iraq. The morning of January 19, 1991, dawned with the harsh light of a new day over Iraq. Yet beneath it, Operation Desert Storm was already in full, violent swing. High above the unforgiving desert, Captain Cesar Rico Rodriguez and his wingman, Captain Craig Mole Underhill, soared in their F-15C Eagles. Their mission was critical: to clear the skies ahead of a massive formation of 36 strike aircraft, including waves of F-16s, tasked with unleashing 2,000-pound general-purpose bombs onto Iraqi ammunition depots near Baghdad. Giant explosions rose from the desert as the F-16s pulled hard up, releasing chaff and flares, anticipating the fury of anti-aircraft missiles. But the Iraqis had a more insidious plan than mere missiles. The Iraqi Air Force had dispatched two pairs of their most advanced fighters, MiG-29 Fulcrums, sleek and formidable adversaries. Outnumbered in the overall air campaign, the Iraqi pilots had been maintaining a cautious distance, biding their time, searching for a moment of weakness, an opportunity to strike. When intelligence crackled through their radios, two F-15s were in their sector. It was an invitation too perfect to ignore. A pair of Fulcrums immediately raced to intercept. Eagles versus Fulcrums. The initial contact. In the cockpit of his F-15, Rico received a crucial message from his Awax, Airborne Warning and Control System, controller Mark White. Rico, you have two hostile contacts. One bearing 040 for 35, second is 340 for 65. Roger, we'll take the 040. Rico calmly responded, choosing the most immediate threat. They turned to engage. The F-15's front-facing radars instantly detected the contacts, painting them clearly on their screens. Contact! But it wasn't the only warning. On another screen, a stark 29 flashed, his radar warning receiver, RWR, alerting him that enemy radars had acquired them. I'm being painted, MiG-29. Rico's voice was sharp. I see it, Mole confirmed, his tone equally focused. Rico and Mole braced for action. Both pairs of enemies, cutting-edge fourth-generation fighters, had each other in their sights, hurtling towards each other in a supersonic joust. Rico selected an AIM7 Sparrow missile, an active radar-guided weapon, preparing for the first shot. The MiG-29's cunning tactic, playing hide-and-seek. The Iraqis, however, had a plan beyond a head-on engagement. They dove far below the F-15s, attempting to use the ground clutter, radar reflections from the terrain, to conceal themselves from the American radar. But it didn't work. Aboard his F-15, Rico watched as the initial fuzzy contact on his screen suddenly split into two well-defined targets. I got you. It's 2 versus 2. Rico selected one of the contacts, locking it in. Aboard the Fulcrum, the Iraqi pilot heard his RWR scream with a lock alert, knowing he was targeted. Yet the Iraqis had another ace up their sleeve. They banked sharply to the side, executing a perfect maneuver. Suddenly, the warnings on Rico's RWR went silent. Rico's finger hovered over the weapon release button as the radar contacts vanished from his screen. I lost it. It was a known blind spot in the F-15's radar. Objects moving perpendicular to them could temporarily become invisible. The MiG-29s were exploiting it perfectly. Rico felt a surge of frustration, but this was a recognized tactic. Moments later, the enemy reappeared on radar 12 nautical miles away. Contact. He locked it in one more time, but held his fire. The AIM-7 Sparrow required him to maintain lock throughout the missile's entire flight. He knew the enemy would re-enter the blind spot before the missile had a chance to catch them. Once again, the enemy disappeared. Lost it again. The MiG-29s continued their cat-and-mouse game, maneuvering across the sky, constantly blinking in and out from Rico's screen, maintaining a frustrating 12 nautical miles of separation. Lost it again. Rico could see their strategy clearly. The fulcrums were attempting to drag them along, deeper into Iraqi airspace. High above, Mark White at the Awax continued to monitor the situation. As the F-15s pressed their pursuit, they crossed the boundary of Mark's area of responsibility. Following protocol, he handed over Rico and Mole to another Awax controller. A field of SAMs, the deeper trap. Rico and Mole kept up the chase, pushing their eagles across the sky, when suddenly their RWR blared with alarm, filling with new detections directly ahead. It was an entire field of S-125 Never surface-to-air missile SAM batteries, strategically set up to defend Baghdad. The Iraqis were trying to pull them into a killing field. "They are dragging us into the city's anti-air," Rico exclaimed. "What are we going to do?" Mole asked, the danger now immediate and profound. Rico checked in with the strike force, listening to the F-16s making their final bombing runs. If he and his wingman turned away now, the F-16s would be left vulnerable, almost certainly intercepted by the persistent MiGs. He made a daring, selfless choice. "Hold position. Keep pushing the bandits away until the strikes are done, then we can get out of here." They held their altitude, deliberately continuing to fly towards the enemy trap, buying the strike force the precious time it needed to complete their mission. The RWR clicked incessantly, growing more frequent by the second, as the Iraqi SAM radars scanned the F-15s, their targeting systems locking on. But the Iraqis still had a cunning plan. Hay knew the Americans could see the missile sites. The SAM field was not the ultimate trap. It was the distraction, the invisible fulcrum. A third MiG-29 attacks. As Rico and Mole focused on the SAM threat, a third MiG-29 charged towards them from their left side, initially out of view from the F-15's front-facing radar. Crucially, its own radar was turned off, ensuring it wouldn't appear on the F-15's RWR. Despite the fight no longer being in his direct area of responsibility, Mark White in his AWACS continued to glance nervously at the developing situation. He saw the new, stealthy enemy approaching the scene and immediately realized the grave danger Rico and Mole were in. But for some reason, the F-15s were not evading the incoming contact. They kept flying straight, even as the bandit closed to within 18 nautical miles. White grew increasingly nervous. This was well within the range of the MiG's R-27 missiles. 16 miles, and still no reaction from the F-15s. He hesitated, worrying that disturbing them in the middle of a battle could worsen the situation. 15 miles, still no reaction. 14 miles. White made the agonizing decision to act. Pop-up contacts, 330 degrees for 13 miles. It was right in the nick of time. Rico heard the urgent call and instantly dropped his external fuel tanks, vapor covering his wings as he pulled hard towards the new contact. The moment his nose pointed towards the incoming fulcrum, it appeared on his radar. Bogey, 8 miles out, just 8 miles away, well within the deadly range of each other's missiles. Simultaneously, the Iraqi pilot, flying blind without his radar on, was informed that the Americans were now directly in front of him. "You're in range. Engaging." He immediately turned on his radar, and Rico's F-15 instantly appeared on his screen. With that act, the ominous 29 reappeared on Rico's RWR, screaming its presence. The two cutting-edge fighters were now fully aware of one another, hurtling towards each other at supersonic speeds. Rico selected the target on his display and locked it in, but he held his fire. The strict rules of engagement dictated that any contact detected within 10 miles had to be identified visually, just in case it was a friendly F-117 Nighthawk. Even with the 29 blaring on his RWR and the imminent danger, Rico held his fire and ordered Mole to run an IFF, identification friend or foe, check on the contact. But there was no time. The Iraqi pilot selected Rico's aircraft and locked him. Rico's RWR shrieked with a lock alert. "I'm getting spiked." He immediately flipped his F-15 upside down and dove, releasing radar-reflective chaff. "I'm getting low. The terrain will confuse its targeting system." But it didn't work. The RWR continued to scream in his ear, warning him of impending doom as he raced down from 30,000 feet at the speed of sound. Rico whipped his head left and right, desperate to spot the enemy with his own eyes. Mole locked the target, his finger hovering over the weapon release button as he ran the identification procedure with the help of intelligence aircraft. The seconds stretched into an eternity as they finally received the all-clear to engage. He pressed the button. Fox 1! Sparrow hits the MiG, a devastating strike. The AIM7 Sparrow missile shot off from under the F-15 in a plume of smoke. Rico saw it streak across the sky, the smoke trail passing between his tails. He followed the smoke trail with his eyes and finally spotted the MiG-29, its nose now aimed down towards him. But it never got to fire. The Sparrow rushed in and struck the MiG square on the nose. There was a giant flash, and the MiG-29 disintegrated, tearing apart into a black smudge of oil and parts against the desert sky. "Splash 1, Mole confirmed, his voice now calm. A wave of immense relief washed over Rico as he pulled out from the dive at just 500 feet high. He'd won the first deadly encounter. But over at the Awax, Mark White could see it wasn't over. "Second group north, 10 miles. Rico scanned the skies. He considered turning away. By now, the strike package of F-16s was already heading home, so they had no reason to hang around. But the remaining enemy MiGs were too close for comfort. They could be shot from behind. They needed to fight. Rico turned north, and the enemy quickly appeared on his screen. It was just beyond 10 miles, so he was clear to shoot it down without visual ID. He ran an identification procedure. It was hostile. He selected the contact on his radar screen and locked the target. In the enemy plane, the Iraqi pilot heard the lock alert and immediately broke into a sharp, evasive maneuver, but it made no difference. Rico's lock held strong as his finger hovered over the button. "He lights up as a diamond on my scope," Mole reported suddenly, his voice filled with a cold sense of dread. "Say again," Rico demanded, confused. "It goes from a solid radar contact to a diamond, which tells me he's friendly." Mole's systems had identified the contact as a friendly aircraft. In that terrifying moment, Mole was overtaken by a chilling realization, but Rico was confident. It had to be another MiG. He needed to prove it with his eyes. The dogfight. Close quarters over the desert. The two prepared for the fight. Rico elected to identify the target visually, and Mole got ready to take the shot if needed. Rico raced towards the enemy, which was coming straight towards and above him. He kept low, letting the bogey get closer. Then he pulled up, engines burning at full throttle. He could see the belly of the bogey right in front of him, but it was still hard to tell what it was against the bright sky as a background. He held his F-15 in its path until Rico's F-15 roared within 50 feet of the bandit. As he did, he finally got a clear view of the enemy's top side, with its distinctive green camouflage proudly displaying the Iraqi flag. "It's a MiG-29, he shouted. Rico made a wide turn left as he soared over the MiG. Looking down through his canopy, he saw the MiG performing a flat turn left, holding its altitude. In that instant, he spotted an opening, and the fancy shooter-eye formation went out the window. This was a dogfight. He turned upside down and pulled hard on the stick, cutting aggressively into the MiG's circle. He was crushed by 10 Gs of force, pushing the F-15 to its very limits. He saw the MiG roar past in front of him, and he pulled hard left to follow. Rico saw the MiG flying away, but he knew he had the advantage. The MiG pushed down, trading altitude for speed. Rico followed him, spiraling down towards the desert floor as the paths of both jets converged. Rico watched the MiG scream through the merge. He was getting closer, feeling the blood rushing down from his head as he did everything to bring the fulcrum into his sights. Far above, Mole could see his leader tangling with the enemy and spotted an opportunity. "I can come in!" "Stand by," Rico responded, confident. This one was his. He saw the MiG coming back and they roared past one another again. He almost had him, but they couldn't keep up this trajectory as they were rapidly running out of altitude. Rico pulled with all he had, powering through 10 Gs of force. Through the crushing Gs, he saw the beautiful sight of the fulcrum moving perfectly into his sights. Rico selected an AIM-9 Sidewinder, a heat-seeking missile, and started to pull his lead, aiming slightly ahead of the MiG for the best chance of impact. But the Iraqi pilot saw the move, and in a desperate last-ditch attempt, he turned upside down and pulled hard towards the ground. Rico was ready for the Iraqi to try something evasive, but he was shocked to see the MiG dive straight for the sand, seemingly on a suicide run. He didn't even think of following. He pulled up sharply to the left, letting the MiG go. MiG-29 down, a triumphant conclusion. The Iraqi pilot began to pull up, fighting the extreme G-forces as his plane continued its rapid descent towards the ground. The sand filled his windshield as he pushed the afterburners to maximum, his MiG screaming as it pulled beyond its G limits, desperately trying to bring the nose up. But it wasn't enough, and the MiG-29 Fulcrum and its Iraqi pilot crashed violently into the desert sand, exploding in a fiery blast. Rico's heart raced as he came down from the adrenaline high. He'd won. Mole appeared 2 miles off his right, tactical right side, and Rico could finally afford to relax. "Let's go home." Captain Cesar Rico Rodriguez would tally up 3 aerial victories total in his career, making him tied for the top spot of MiG victories for pilots after the Vietnam War. "It was close today," Mole said. 2 same-generation fighters." "True," Rico replied. "Not like when our F-16s ate hawks for breakfast."